Sabrina, just to recap, 4 dead, 9 injured, and we understand that the suspect is identified as a 14-year-old. We're expecting to get more on that when the GBI provides more information at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, and Bill, something I'm also noticing, in the days that we live in now, social media, everybody takes to social media. I've seen 2 different posts, one from a woman who posts on her Facebook page publicly saying that her father was one of the ones that was shot. He was not killed. He was shot in the hip and is out of surgery as in stable condition. Don't have the name right now to pass along. I don't want to do that until we can put it on social media. And then got another picture of a young man on Facebook that is circulating that's saying he didn't make it. So we hope to learn more during this news briefing at 4:30. It's going to take a while, I'm sure, for the authorities to get all of the information together and give us what they know. And they asked us earlier, as you heard, them saying, please be patient with us, and we'll get it to you. But again, as soon as that briefing gets underway at 4:30, we'll bring it to you. And
obviously, the Barrow County area and the Appalachia High School community in mourning today. And we've learned from WSB's Austin Eller there will be 2 vigils held in Winder tonight to gather and pray together. One of the vigils will be at the Jug Tavern Park. The other will be at Restoration Church, and those both begin at 7 o'clock tonight. So a place for families, the community, everyone to gather tonight so they can come together and mourn the loss of these 4 people who have died, and of course pray for those who are injured. 9 injured, and again, a 14-year-old suspect is in custody at this hour, and we're going to learn more from the GBI and the Barrow County authorities coming up here at the bottom of the hour.
And we got a statement from the president earlier. He says, Jill and I are mourning the death of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence, and thinking of all of the survivors whose lives are forever changed. What should have been a joyous back-to-school season in Winder, Georgia, has now turned into another horrific reminder of how gun violence continues to tear our communities apart. He says students across the country are learning how to duck and cover instead of how to read and write. He said that we cannot continue to accept this as normal. That was the statement from President Biden today.
And also, Governor Kemp also has been weighing in. He also, Marty and the girls, saying that they are praying for the community in Barrow County today. All the state resources are made available to help to respond to this situation at Appalachia High School today. And so the state resources, federal resources, the FBI, the ATF, GBI, GMA, all involved in this investigation. And again, we're just hoping to learn some more about the tragic developments at Appalachia High School at the bottom of the hour, when the GBI and the sheriff of Barrow County will give a briefing coming up at 4:30 this afternoon. We're also going to hear from Veronica Waters in just a moment. She has been doing some remarkable reporting from the scene, talking to some students, talking to one student in particular who had some very emotional and gripping eyewitness accounts from the classroom, one of the classrooms where the shooter opened fire. So we'll hear from Veronica in just a moment. Also, WSB Jonathan O'Brien there speaking to parents and loved ones of shooting victims in Winder today as well. So it's a story that we've been following since about 10:30 this morning. And you're listening to live, continuing in-depth team coverage on 95.5 WSB. I'm Bill Caiaccio, along with Sabrina Cupid. And we're going to go now live back to Winder, and WSB's Veronica Waters is there with more on the situation. Veronica.
Well, Bill, I can tell you that my car, I am close to my car now, in my car, and just got back a little while ago, and the road has started to clear out a little bit, though. That long line of cars that Jonathan first mentioned, of course, he was the first one here, has actually thinned out quite a bit now, as so many family members have gotten with their children and have walked by me and gotten into their vehicles and left. I'm about 1.5 miles back from the school, approximately, a little bit more than that. And it has been interesting seeing some of the faces. You could tell when we talked earlier, I was saying you could see that some people may have been farther away from the tragedy, so much so that they maybe they didn't hear anything, or they're just, in much more buoyant spirits than other people that I've passed by, where the relief was actually palpable. And you could see some relatives, adults who were holding the hands of their children or whatever loved ones they had so tightly. You could just tell that there was a lot of emotion and something in addition to just mere affection in that grip. You can see on some people's faces the actual relief. I watched what looked like a woman and her son reunite. The son had been walking toward me, the mother behind me, and I stopped so that I could talk to you two, and the two of them just came together, and there were no words. He threw his arms around her. She threw her hands around his neck. They held each other so tightly in silence for so long. She gave him a kiss on the cheek, and then she just went back to squeezing him again. It has really been an emotional and trying day for so many people here, whether they witnessed the shooting, like the student that I talked to earlier today, or not.
All right, Veronica, and here's a little clip from that interview you had from earlier with Hayden Bowen Jackson.
I experienced a lot. I witnessed two of my best friends die.
That's Hayden Bowen Jackson, who you spoke with a short time ago. Talk to us a little bit more about her emotional accounts of what happened today in her math class.
Hayden is a ninth grader who was in her second grade algebra class when she says that someone kicked open the door and opened fire. She heard 4 gunshots. She said 5 people were hit by those gunshots because one of the bullets grazed a friend of hers and then more fully hit another student. She said that she saw, as you heard her say, 2 of her best friends die. 2 others were injured. She ripped off her jacket and she immediately went to try to apply pressure to one of the wounded students. Hayden was really incredible, so incredibly composed to have witnessed such horrific violence at such a young age. Of course, I don't think any of us would ever be prepared for that. Even soldiers at war have these sobering moments. Basic training can't fully prepare you for that. But imagine a ninth grader whose only introduction to violence has been through the crime shows that she loved to watch, which helped her know that she should apply pressure to a wounded student when gunfire breaks out in front of her. She was just so strong and wanting to talk to me about what she experienced, even though her very protective uncle, who had been walking with her back toward their vehicle, at first told me no thank you. And she's the one who stopped him. And she said something to him quietly. She put her hand on him and he gave her his permission. He said, okay, if you want to. And then she walked over to me and just conducted this really heartfelt and quiet interview with Hayden as she was able to sort of get it out. I think it really helped her to talk about it. And I think it also gave voice to her grief and to her love and affection for these friends that she lost. She was, her faith is clearly very strong. When I asked her how she got through it, she said, she was putting book bags in front of her. She was trying to just stay out of sight. Everybody was trying to hide, but she also immediately started praying. And she believed that if it wasn't her time to go, then God would keep her safe. And she was grateful that she is alive today and that she can honor her friends' memories and tell their souls that she's praying for them. And she believes that their souls, that they're dancing, she says, in heaven with relatives that they didn't have anymore here on earth. An incredible young woman. And you could just see the compassion in her and the spine of steel that she has, which are going to serve her well. As she said, she was already determined to become a nurse when she becomes an adult. And now this has strengthened her commitment to becoming a nurse in the future. She wants to be able to help people. And now she knows the trauma that can be experienced firsthand. And she wants to help people through that.
She already helped a lot of people today. Thanks, Veronica.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it. Also, just coming into us here, Channel 2 Action News reporter Richard Elliott is discussing a meeting that's going to happen tomorrow with State Senator Emmanuel Jones and his committee at the Capitol. Let's listen in.
Yeah, we've been on the phone with state officials all day. We just got a new statement within the past 30 minutes from Governor Brian Kemp. He said, quote, "Marty, the girls and I are heartbroken by today's tragedy at Appalachia High School. This is a day every parent dreads, and Georgians everywhere will hug their children tighter this evening because of this painful event. We continue to work closely with local, state, and federal partners to make any and all resources available to help this community on this incredibly difficult day and the days to come." Now, ironically, tomorrow is the very first meeting of the Senate Study Committee on Safe Firearm Storage. A lot of debate during last legislative session. Obviously, a lot of state lawmakers do not want to touch gun control, but even Republicans embrace this idea of finding ways to better encourage people to safely store their guns. The very first meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The chairman of that committee, State Senator Emmanuel Jones, said, and I'm reading this for the first time, quote, "I am committed to finding solutions to stop these tragedies before they occur. This is not about infringing on Second Amendment rights, but protecting our children and their safety. The technology exists today to secure firearms effectively, ensuring they do not fall into the hands of those who should not have access to them, particularly children." He goes on to say, "I call on all elected officials to take meaningful action and ensure that tragedies like this never happen again. Our children deserve better." And again, the very first meeting of that committee is scheduled to be tomorrow morning.
Channel 2 Action News reporter Richard Elliott. And we've mentioned several times throughout the day that this high school, Appalachia High School, is not far from Georgia Highway 316. This is having an impact on traffic still this afternoon. Let's get an update on that and the rest of the metro traffic now with WSB's Doug Turnbull.
And for those who may be checking their popular traffic apps and seeing a bunch of jams on those roadways, a lot of that's caused along Heyman Morris Road and Tom Miller and even just south of 316 because cars are parked along those roadways, even though authorities have urged people not to. A lot of parents park their car and then walk to the school to try to get with their loved ones there. There's also a delay on Carl Bethlehem Road trying to get into that Home Depot over there where people were told to park about a mile east of the high school earlier. And on 316 westbound as well, that is slow getting to Patrick Mill, one of the close intersections to Appalachia High. Looking at the rest of the metro area, most of you just dealing with the volume you would expect on a Wednesday on the freeways. Unusually slow on Flowery Branch. A crash just moved to the right shoulder, 985 south below Spout Springs, exit 12. One just moving to the right of DeKalb County as you leave Chamblee 85 north before 285, but delays there come up from Claremont Road. Doug Turnbull, 95.5 WSB.
And you're listening to continuing breaking news coverage along with Sabrina Cupid. I am Bill Caiaccio at the breaking news desk as we continue to follow the developments out of Winder this afternoon, where earlier today at Appalachia High School in Barrow County, there's been a school shooting. 4 people dead and 4 are hospitalized with injuries. A suspect is in custody, and we understand that suspect is just 14 years old. And Sabrina, it has certainly been a tragic day, and we're hoping to learn more in just a few minutes from the authorities there in Barrow County.
Yeah, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Barrow County Sheriff's Office all expected to hold a joint news briefing soon. They're saying that it'll be around 4:30, so in about 10 minutes from now. And we, of course, will bring that to you live once it gets underway. But what we know so far, it is tragic, basically. You want to go down the numbers for them? 14-year-old?
Yeah, 14-year-old suspect is in custody. There's 4 people dead. 4 people are injured. So we're trying to learn more, and hopefully we will during this news briefing about the ages of the victims and more about this the suspect that is in custody. But again, we have not had anything confirmed yet about as far as who's dead or who's injured, and we understand that they've been taken to multiple hospitals. We've had WSB Steve Summers reporting this afternoon from Grady Hospital, where at least one of the shooting victims was taken. There's also been shooting victims taken to Children's Hospital, as well as Northeast Georgia Medical Center in Barrow County, as well as Northeast Georgia Medical Center in Gainesville. So the shooting victims have gone to various hospitals, and we're looking to get updates on how those people are doing.
And a lot of people move to Georgia from out of state. So those of us like you and I who are from Georgia, we know where Winder is. But in case you're just joining us and you don't know, Winder is about an hour outside of Atlanta, and population is about 18,000. It's not far from Athens. So if you know where the Georgia Bulldogs play in Athens, then you'll know kind of where Winder is. It's about 20 minutes outside of there, but that is where Winder is. And, I think in a community like that, I mean, I grew up in a small town not far from there, which is Jefferson, which is next door to Winder. Everybody knows everybody. So you take to social media, and for something like that to happen in a place like Winder, it's heartbreaking. And it is a community of faith. A lot of people come together, and one of the most touching things, and I've mentioned it a couple of times since we've been on the air for the last few hours, that touched me is the students. After the shooting happened, there was a huge circle of students on the football field holding hands and praying, and maybe that's all they felt they could do, but it was the right thing to do, and it was heartwarming to see that after such a horrible thing. And
speaking of praying and the community gathering and getting together, there are going to be at least 2 2 vigils in Winder tonight to talk about this tragedy. One is going to be at 7 o'clock at the Jug Tavern Park. The other one also at 7 o'clock at Restoration Church. So that's where the community will be gathering tonight to come together and remember these 4 victims who have been killed and pray for the 9 who are injured. So we will be going to this news briefing hopefully in the next few minutes. It's scheduled for 4:30. We're expecting to hear from the GBI and maybe Sheriff Judd Smith, who came out earlier and didn't have many details and couldn't give us much information at all, but called it a very active situation and said that it was very information was literally coming in by the minute, and he called what had happened at the school behind him where he was speaking evil. And so we are just waiting for that to happen, and that's going to be coming up around 4:30 this afternoon.
Bill, should we go back and kind of reset in case you're just getting in the car if you've been at work all day and you're not sure what's going on? What happened is about 9:30 this morning is when this all started to happen. We got word of it about 10:30. We got calls into the newsroom that something is going on. So, of course, we, start making the calls and putting out our feelers to find out what is going on. And that's when we learned that there had been some type of shooting or some type of incident at this school there in Winder, in Barrow County. And that's when we got first word of it, what had happened. We did not know the extent of it or if it was even really happening, but that's what we found out this morning. So this has been unfolding since 9:30, 10:30 this morning, and here we are at about 4:30, and all of the students were evacuated. They were moved to the football field there at the school, and parents were told that they could pick up their children, and there was a big crunch of, as you can imagine, parents coming to the school to pick up their children. We saw a couple of life flight choppers take patients away, and we knew that something was, terribly bad going on when we saw and we learned that one of them had at least been taken to Grady.
Sabrina, while we wait for this news conference, hopefully at the bottom of the hour, just a few minutes ago, CNN national security analyst Juliette Kayyem explains what she'd like to hear addressed during this upcoming press conference.
So obviously the access issue, I'm curious about how accessible the school was. What was its risk environment? Had there been violence before? What kind of, it's a high school, what kind of metal detectors and others there were? Obviously the age, Jake. It's 14 years old. I was looking at the statistics. It's not as unusual as we wish. That school shootings occur by 14-year-olds, but a mass shooting like this is very rare. That's a young age. So then the third and important question is access to the gun. Everyone knows Georgia's gun laws are permissive. It's just, this isn't a political commentary. They are exceptionally permissive. And that means that the parents or someone who had the gun made it either available to him or he took it from them. We need to get more aggressive against adults who buy these weapons and make them accessible or allow them to be accessible to a 14-year-old. And I guess the last question, of course, is motive. Was this against a particular person, a classroom? What was his reason for doing it? But you and I have been doing this long enough. Sometimes the motive isn't satisfying. It's just someone who's gets guns and wants to use them in a violent manner, and we can blame mental health or whatever else, but it doesn't really get to why this morning.
And let's go back live to Winder now as we await this news conference. Let's go to WSB's Jonathan O'Brien, who's been at Appalachia High School now for several hours, and get an update from Jonathan before we head to this news briefing.
That's right, Bill, and we're all standing by here, awaiting this news conference from what we expect to be members of the GBI, the FBI, and, of course, the Barrow County Sheriff. We have been waiting for these official updates for hours as the area has cleared out. We heard Veronica a short time ago saying that traffic in the area has thinned out. The number of cars stacked up on the sides of the road has gone down, and traffic is moving, and you can see the vehicles that mostly remain right now are, of course, news vehicles and law enforcement. The law enforcement presence hasn't dissipated at all, and we are, yellow caution tape remains strewn across the area here in front of the high school as we await this news conference. And again, repeating what I've been saying all afternoon, no matter who you talk to, no matter the age of the person, whether they had a family member in the high school or whether they had a child that they were picking up at the elementary school, the same feeling is there, and it is a mix of relief and shock at what has happened here today. Bill?
Thank you, Jonathan, and we'll go back to you after the press conference is over here in a little while. We're, again, anticipating that to start around 4:30. It may not be an exact time, but we'll go to it live as soon as it comes up from Winder this afternoon. Let's go live now back to Grady Hospital, where WSB Steve Summers has been all afternoon. We know, Steve, at least one of the shooting victims has been taken there.
Yeah, a gunshot wound to the stomach. We don't have a condition. We know that surgery was performed on this individual. We also have been able to gather that two more victims who were wounded went to Piedmont, Athens, and a couple of them to regional hospitals in Barrow and in Gainesville. The breakdown on level of injury, physically, emotionally, we're not privy to that yet. We don't know that all of these are gunshot victims, or that even some of them are. A few of them obviously are, but so we do know that some of these folks may have been treated on scene or at their homes for anxiety, panic attacks, maybe at the doctor's office. Admissions to hospitals. I think the numbers we're going with now are 9, 8 or 9. I've heard mentioned mostly 9, and we don't know how many of those are gunshot wounds, or obviously there could have been other things as well. In the scramble to get out of the school, were people hurt in the stampede? Were people injured in some other way that was not directly related to the gunman? But we're waiting here for what we hope will be some kind of an update on this person who seems to have had surgery for a gunshot wound to the abdomen area, and what might have come out of that. Bill, Sabrina?
All right, thank you very much. And we want to recap for you what's going on. A shooting today at a high school in Winder, and 4 people are dead, 9 others injured. We've just gotten a statement from Donald Trump on Truth Social, and he says, quote, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster." That's the statement.